We want to get the word out early. We still have that closure of the westbound I-10 right at 67th Avenue. We've got a police investigation ongoing from an early morning incident, and so we have a full closure. So this is going to cause problems as we get into the afternoon drive. This is also causing problems on the northbound Loop 202 South Mountain Freeway. You are unable to make the transition to the westbound I-10. You're being taken off at eastbound I-10 there. So 51st Avenue is your alternate there. Also, for folks coming westbound, may want to think about getting off maybe at 35th Avenue or go northbound on 17. McDowell or Thomas are your alternates there. Traffic is brought to you by Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax, helping you make the most important choices today to plan for your financial future tomorrow. Get your free portfolio review at assetpreservationwealth.com. John Roller, KTAR News.
Sunny and 72 for the high today. Overnight low 45. Right around 73 tomorrow. And in Peoria right now at 70. Weather brought to you by Howard Air. Whether replace or repair, call Howard Air. I'm Becky Lynn on Arizona's news station, KTAR News.
The Chris and Joe Show. Afternoons 2 to 4 on KTAR News 92.3 and the KTAR News app.
We are honored to be joined in the studio to start the program today by the governor of the great state of Arizona, Governor Katie Hobbs. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
It is so wonderful to see you in the studio. We hope that we get a chance to do this with you more often. Congratulations on your State of the State address. I know it went very well for you. Sounded great. Of course, we aired it here on KTAR. You talked about a number of different issues facing Arizonans, of course. We followed some stories, some of the leadership in the legislature on the heels of that speech. They said that their biggest task this year is defeating you in the next election. That's their top priority. What, if anything, should Arizonans expect to see accomplished this year? Because it sounds like the goal is not to accomplish much.
Well, I think at the legislature, if we're working against each other, we're working against Arizonans. And look, the constituents that I was talking to in my State of the State address on Monday, the Arizonans who are dealing with affordability, I think more than anything, they're represented by these folks in the legislature too. And we need to work together to tackle these tough issues, to make things more affordable. And in my State of the State, I talked about making healthcare more accessible, about childcare, about continuing the work we're doing on housing. These are issues that our constituents elected us to work together to solve. And I hope that there's a chance to come together and do that.
If you could only get one thing done this year, though, what is the one thing? What's the top priority of what you want to get done in 2025?
Well, we have a lot of issues facing us, and I think a lot of things that predecessors have kicked down the road. And I don't think Arizonans elected us to deal with one thing. They elected us to deal with all the problems. We've got water security. There's a lot of pressing issues there that we have, I think, ripe opportunity this year to address. We made some progress on housing. We have more to do. We are rolling out an ambitious child care plan. So I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time and tackle all these things at once.
Governor Katie Hobbs is joining us in the studio right now. Who are the Republicans that you can work with? We know that some are putting up flags right now, and I don't know how much of that is show and how much of that is actually the case behind the scenes. But who are some of the people that you are working with or have been able to work with or plan to work with in the coming year to be able to accomplish some of the goals that you laid out?
Well, it depends really on the issue, but I've worked really hard to build relationships across the aisle, and I don't worry about what folks are saying on their social media or in public. Some of that's posturing that we know gets done. But as long as we can put that stuff aside and sit down and work on the issues, I'll work with anyone who's willing to tackle these. And I've done that for the last 2 years. It's what I plan to continue to do for the next 2.
Governor Katie Hobbs joins us in studio right now. How do you work with someone like Jake Hoffman and the Freedom Caucus? They say their number one goal is to make sure that you don't have that job in 2026, along with Secretary Fontes and Attorney General Mays. How do you work with them? What's your relationship like?
Well, again, it makes me wonder about their constituents who are the ones getting left out of this equation. If their whole focus is to defeat me and I'm focused on tackling the issues that Arizonans are facing, they get left out if those folks are just trying to work against me. So, look, I think this last election, made really clear that people are still struggling to get by, even though our economy is doing well. So we need to do more to make sure that Arizonans are benefiting from the good economy, that they can afford a house, that they can put their kids in childcare, and they're not having to work 2 and 3 jobs to keep up. And I think that was made clear across the country, and that's what we have to work on.
Speaking of kids and posturing, Superintendent Horn says the governor needs to pay more attention to what's going on. She gets an F as it relates to the battle over ESA voucher program and oversight in the state. So I don't know if you've ever gotten an F before. Joe and I have received plenty in our time, so congratulations for joining the club. What is your plan then when it comes to addressing ESAs? Because I'm going to guess you and Superintendent Horn don't see eye to eye on that one.
That is really masterful deflection by the superintendent of public instruction, who's been a huge champion of ESAs, and I've been an outspoken opponent. This is a program that is rife with fraud and abuse, and it's giving a blank check of taxpayer money to people to spend really however they want, with no oversight and accountability. Superintendent Horn's office is the office that's charged with that oversight and accountability, and he's just completely dropped the ball and abdicated that responsibility. So it's rich that he's turning that responsibility on me now. I've been trying to put guardrails on this program from day one.
You say he's dropped the ball. You're trying to put guardrails on it. How do you do some of those things? He's giving you the F. It doesn't seem like he wants to work with you. So how do you accomplish those things, though you say it's his responsibility? Well,
we really need the legislature to put some oversight on the universal expansion that they approved 3 years ago. And my budget will lay out a common sense way to do that, with some reasonable income caps and just making sure that taxpayers understand where their dollars are going, and that we can get rid of some of the abuse that's in the program. I mean, we've seen people spend these dollars on a grand piano, on luxury car driving lessons, on ski passes. There was a situation of people purchasing dune buggies. I think that got disapproved, but that now the superintendent's putting even less oversight, and those are the kind of things that are going to continue to happen unless the legislature acts. And I've put forward plans the last 2 years. Hopefully this year there's enough public pressure by people not wanting their taxpayer dollars to be abused in this way that we can put some reasonable limits there.
Sticking with education, as we talk with Arizona Governor Kitty Hobbs, the Roosevelt District just voted to close 5 schools. Mm-hmm. Paradise Valley closing 3 due to declining enrollment. Mesa Public Schools just announced layoffs for the same reason. By the way, shout out to our friends in Mesa. Appreciate you listening to KTAR in Mesa. Some of the main reasons include an expected decrease of around 1,800 students in total enrollment throughout the Mesa District, a decrease in expected funding, and rising operational costs. All of these things sound like budget issues, right? We already have low rankings in the education system in Arizona. Is it getting worse?
Well, we need to do more to invest in our public schools. And the bottom line is that 90% of students across Arizona still choose public schools, whether that's a charter school or a district school. All of our public schools are being hurt by the universal ESA program. So we need to invest more so that Arizona doesn't continue to rank at the bottom of funding for our schools. And really, I laid out my vision of the Arizona Promise, which is about opportunity and freedom and security. And all of those things are at risk if we're not investing in our public classrooms.
Let's talk a little bit about the border and immigration. Yesterday, you met with the Mexican foreign minister. Can you share some of the details from that meeting?
They're a new administration as well, and so looking at how to work with the incoming administration here in the United States, but regardless of what's happening in Washington, Arizona has a very strong partnership with Mexico. They're our number one trading partner. Arizona and Sonora are working together on a lot of projects that are benefiting the region, strengthening the economy for both Arizonans and Sonorans, and continuing that relationship is really important. And that relationship is important in how we address border security. We need cross-border cooperation, and there's a lot of actions that the Mexican government has taken that have helped to decrease the numbers of people we're seeing crossing, and a lot of actions they're taking around the cartels that are helping hold them accountable and decreasing the flow of illegal substances into the country.
Governor Hobbs, the incoming administration has been somewhat, I don't want to say necessarily hostile toward the people of Mexico, but certainly not open and welcoming that, as we've seen in the past. How do you see the trade relationship between Arizona and Mexico being affected by what's happening in D.C.? It seems like this is going to be one of your challenges for the coming years, navigating the state's personal relationship in spite of what the White House might be doing.
Yeah. As governor of Arizona and understanding how critical that trade relationship is to our economy and to our region, I'll continue to make the case to Washington of ways that we can continue to bolster that relationship. And I think, I'm not dismissing things that the president-elect has said, but we have to work together to make sure that the economy is working for Arizonans, that it's working for Americans. And there's so much going on here. The semiconductor industry, which we're the epicenter for, and having those close relationships, the proximity to Mexico, the ability to nearshore improves our economy so much. And making that case with the president-elect is going to be really critical. And I'll continue to do that. I think there's rhetoric and there's action, and we'll see what the actions are.
The president-elect will be sworn in early next week. How do you plan to respond to, I've heard it described as a number of swift executive orders that the president-elect plans to put into place on tariffs and mass deportations as well?
Well, look, it's hard to respond to what is a lot of speculation. We haven't seen the details. We don't know what they are. And I'm trying to keep, my staff focused on what's in front of us and responding to that. We're certainly doing a lot of, looking at what our legal options are should certain actions be taken. But I'm focused on the work we can do together to keep our border secure, to keep our communities safe, and to keep the economy working for Arizonans. I am certainly worried about the impact that tariffs will have on prices. And this is a president-elect who ran on lowering costs. He has said since the election he won because of the price of groceries. And it's hard to imagine that tariffs are a smart economic policy in the midst of all of that conversation.
Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs joining us on the Chris and Joe Show, KTAR News. You've mentioned a couple of times the economy, and obviously this is one of the things that all leaders are worried about right now, inflation, that sort of thing. You brought up in your State of the State address the housing. Mm-hmm. We've got a housing shortage that happens right now. I saw that Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego was sort of saying the suburbs need to step up a little bit. Some of the suburbs, like Queen Creek, are saying, we got to do what's in our own best interest. Is there an opportunity for you to sort of work as a mitigator between different communities? And obviously we're Valley focused and you're statewide focused, but is there an opportunity for you to work as sort of a mitigator to bring all the players to the table?
Yes, 100%. And we did that to some degree last year. We worked on legislation that helps cut the red tape that allows housing to be built more quickly. We've made really big investments specifically around affordable housing. And this year, one of my priorities around increasing affordability for housing is the short-term rental issue and letting communities take that back into their own hands and stop the government mandate that stops them from having a say in those kind of situations in their neighborhoods. These out-of-state speculators are buying up properties. It's driving down the inventory for Arizonans and driving down the affordability, or driving up. It's negatively impacting the affordability, and so that's one thing. And then the other thing is around water specifically. We were able to implement a program that allows communities that need to continue to grow, Queen Creek and Buckeye, for example, that they can come up with alternative sources of water instead of just groundwater so that they can continue to build the housing they need to grow. And those are some really critical tools.
What are some of those alternative sources? I mean, are we going to have tanker trains that are going to be running from the ocean? What are the alternatives to the groundwater that we can look forward to?
Well, an example, so we have basins that are designated as transportation basins. That means the water can be moved into other areas. So that's like a huge source right there. And so, without getting into the very weeds of water policy, there are sources available. We just needed to make it so that communities could claim those as sources to be able to build.
A couple more real quick ones here for Governor Katie Hobbs joining us in studio on KTAR right now. We've all seen all across the valley the devastation playing out in Altadena, Pacific Palisades, and Los Angeles. How concerned are you that we could see a natural disaster on the scale of what we see playing out in Los Angeles right here in the valley? And what are you doing to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, first, let me say that my heart is with the people in California that are just dealing with this massive devastation. And I'm so proud of the Arizona firefighters who are there helping our neighbors as they battle the flames. This is the kind of partnership we rely on when we're in the depth of our wildfire season. Folks come and help us too. And so, but yeah, no, I mean, wildfires are a thing that happens. They are made worse with climate change. We're seeing the impact of that. And we're doing a lot to prepare for our own wildfire season. There's a lot of prevention work that happens in communities, helping people understand how to make their spaces wildfire safer, things like that. But yeah, no, we're certainly concerned at the lack of precipitation we've had this year. It bodes for a dry summer, and I think we're in for a difficult wildfire season.
Does it ever concern you? Obviously, we want to be able to help with the mutual aid stuff with the western states. Does it ever concern you, though, that we've got a number of people who are helping California right now? What if something happens here? Are the resources still strong enough here that should something break out, we can jump on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in the middle of a complex fire situation right now, and we still have the additional resources to help in California.
Okay. Very good. Governor Katie Hobbs, our guest, it has been a pleasure having you.
Thank
We're getting
you.
the high sign on this one.
Right.
So the comics were looking at it to say red light. So we appreciate so much you being in the studio. We really do. We hope we get a chance to talk with you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Governor Katie Hobbs, right on the heels of her State of the State address here on the Chris and Joe Show. You've heard the governor's plans, a little bit more detail, how she intends to get things done in a split government. We're going to give you an opportunity to respond and then offer up your own questions, comments, quips, quotes, criticisms, and compliments. Next on the Chris and Joe Show, KTAR News.
But first, here's Becky Lynn with the day's top story right now.
KTAR News Flash.
It's 2:21. I'm Becky Lynn, and here's what you need to know right now. Officials announced that Israel and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire deal to pause the devastating 15-month war in the Gaza Strip, raising the possibility of winding down the deadliest and most destructive fighting between the bitter